Jordan always believed his father abandoned him. But the truth inside a sealed DNA report revealed a completely different story. And when Dr. Phil opened it live on stage, he froze mid-sentence. Because the real father wasn't backstage, he was sitting in the audience. Jordan sat under the hot studio lights with the look of someone who had rehearsed his story 1,000 times in his head, but still didn't know how to begin. A 28-year-old man with steady shoulders but trembling hands. He spoke like every sentence carried a piece of his past that he wasn't sure he wanted to revisit. The studio was quiet, too quiet, like even the air didn't want to interrupt him. Dr. Phil watched him carefully, sensing that the space between Jordan's pauses wasn't uncertainty. It was fear. Jordan kept glancing toward the studio audience, not in a distracted way, not scanning the room. It was the same exact seat, the same exact person, again and again. A stranger Jordan had never met, yet couldn't look away from. That alone told Dr. Phil there was more happening beneath the surface than the words Jordan was forcing out. He cleared his throat, staring down at the DNA envelope on the table like it was a ticking bomb. "My mom told me my dad left before I was born," he said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. "She said he didn't want me, that he never cared." Dr. Phil nodded, leaning forward just a bit, his quiet signal that he wanted Jordan to continue. "But that's not what the DNA test said," Jordan whispered. "It gave me a name, someone else, someone close." A ripple moved through the audience, the kind of hush that comes when people feel a truth inching closer. Jordan swallowed hard. "And the crazy thing is, I think he's here." Dr. Phil's brows drew together. "Here? Today?" Jordan nodded, his eyes darting back to the same figure in the audience. The camera didn't show the man's face yet, just the outline of someone sitting completely still, hands folded as if bracing for impact. "I don't know if it's him," Jordan said. "I don't know anything for sure. But the test said this person is a 49.5% match. And if that's true, everything I believed about my childhood is wrong." The tension tightened in the room like a rope pulled at both ends. Jordan continued, his voice cracking. "My whole life I thought he abandoned me. But what if that's not the truth? What if my mom lied?" A gasp echoed from somewhere in the audience. Jordan lifted his head slowly, his face flushed with shame. "I don't want to believe she did. But I look at this report," and he tapped the envelope lightly. "It doesn't lie. It doesn't care about stories or memories or excuses." Dr. Phil paused, giving Jordan space to breathe. Then he asked the question everyone was waiting for. "Jordan, who do you think this man in the audience is?" Jordan exhaled, long and shaky. "If the DNA test is right, he's my real father." The studio went dead silent. Even the stage crew froze. Dr. Phil lifted the sealed envelope like he could feel the weight of the truth inside. "And you haven't opened this yet?" Jordan shook his head. "I wanted to open it here. With him here. With you here. I want the truth, not a story." The camera caught the man in the audience, shifting slightly, his jaw tightening, his eyes glistening. Not in guilt, but something heavier. Something like hope mixed with fear. Jordan rubbed his palms together nervously. "If this is real, if this test says what I think it does, then I've spent almost 30 years hating the wrong man." A tremor moved through his voice. "And I don't know what scares me more, discovering he abandoned me or discovering he didn't." He looked straight at the camera then, eyes burning with a truth he could no longer ignore. "If this envelope is right, my entire life is about to change." The studio held its breath. What if the person you've been searching for your whole life has been sitting just a few feet away? 3 months before Jordan sat under the studio lights, before the DNA envelope, before the stranger in the audience, his life felt ordinary. Predictable. The kind of life where the past is a closed door you never expect to reopen. He was helping his mother move into a smaller house after her knee surgery, sorting through dusty boxes in her attic where the air smelled like old photo albums and forgotten years. He wasn't looking for secrets, just a box labeled winter clothes. But fate has a habit of hiding the truth in places we stop checking. He opened a worn cardboard box shoved behind a stack of holiday decorations. Inside were photo frames wrapped in newspapers from the early 2000s. As he unwrapped one of the frames, something slid out, a sealed beige envelope with handwriting on the front that didn't belong to his mother. For Jordan, when you're ready. A sentence that stopped him cold. His mother's handwriting was sharp, precise, the kind of script that looked like it belonged in a neat planner. But this handwriting was soft, loopy, unfamiliar, almost nervous. Jordan froze. When you're ready for what? He held the envelope up to the attic light. Inside, something stiff, paper, maybe a photo. He opened it slowly. The first thing he saw was a picture. A young woman, his mother at 20, but different than he'd ever seen her. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't posing. She was standing beside a man Jordan had never seen before. The man's arm was around her waist, not casually, but with a familiarity that suddenly made Jordan's stomach twist. His mother looked happy and scared and uncertain all at once. Jordan checked the back of the photo. A date was scribbled there. June 1995. The problem? Jordan was born in late 1996, and according to his mother's story, she hadn't dated anyone seriously for years before his birth. His chest tightened. "Mom, what is this?" But the attic only offered silence. Inside the envelope was something else, a hospital wristband. His mother's name printed on the white strip, but the last name scratched out, scraped so hard the plastic was warped. Who was she hiding? Why hide the name instead of simply removing it? Jordan's pulse quickened. He felt like someone had pulled a thread from the sweater of his life, and the whole thing was beginning to unravel. He clutched the photo and the wristband, then marched downstairs to the living room where his mother was labeling kitchen boxes. "Mom," he said, his voice tight, the envelope dangling from his fingers. "What is this?" She looked up. In that split second, before she said anything, Jordan saw it. Her face drained of color. Her breath caught. Her hands stiffened around the marker. Fear. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Fear. "Oh, honey," she whispered, as if she'd just seen a ghost. "Where did you find that?" "In the attic," Jordan said. "You labeled it. When you're ready." "Ready for what?" She looked away, focusing on a fixed point on the wall like she needed something to anchor herself. "It's nothing. It's old. It's just a mistake. The handwriting isn't yours," Jordan pushed. "And the date on this photo doesn't match anything you ever told me." Her eyes flickered, panic rising. "Jordan, please. Let me explain later." "No," he said, his voice sharper now. "Explain now." She hesitated, and that hesitation told him more than any lie could. Jordan stepped closer, holding the wristband. "Why was your last name scratched out? What were you hiding?" "I wasn't hiding anything," she said too quickly. But her eyes said everything she was afraid to say out loud. A heavy silence wrapped around them. Something old and dark was waking between them, a secret that had been sleeping for nearly 30 years. Then Jordan opened the folded slip of paper still inside the envelope. One name, written 4 times, then circled again. Daniel Reed. A name he'd never heard. A name his mother refused to meet his eyes over. A name that suddenly felt like a stranger knocking on the door of his identity. Jordan felt something inside him break, not loudly but quietly, like a crack spreading through glass. "Mom," he whispered, "who is Daniel Reed?" His mother didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence answered for her. And Jordan knew in that moment, this wasn't just a forgotten memory. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was the beginning of a truth she never wanted him to find. How far would someone go to protect the version of the past they want you to believe? Jordan didn't touch the envelope again that night. He didn't need to. The name written inside it, Daniel Reed, echoed in his mind like a loose window banging in the middle of a storm. Every time he tried to sleep, he saw his mother's face when he confronted her. The fear, the guilt, the desperate attempt to change the subject. It wasn't the reaction of someone who had nothing to hide. It was the reaction of someone who had been waiting for this day and hoping it would never come. The next morning, Jordan made a choice he couldn't unmake. He drove to a pharmacy, bought the first DNA kit he saw, and sat in his car staring at the box. The engine hummed beneath him, but all he heard was the question pounding inside his chest. What if the story I grew up believing wasn't mine at all? He opened the kit, swabbed his cheek, sealed the sample, and mailed it off. His hand trembled as he dropped the envelope into the metal slot. The moment it clanged shut, his heart did too. There was no turning back. He tried to distract himself for the next few days, work, gym, errands, but every time his phone buzzed, his pulse spiked. He told himself it would take weeks. DNA tests always do. But 5 days later, only 5, he received a notification. Your results are ready. Jordan stared at the screen. His throat went dry. 5 days meant something triggered a match that needed verification. Something close. Something big. He opened the app. The first thing he saw was a list of relatives, none of them familiar. Not his mother's cousins. Not anyone from the family gatherings he'd attended since childhood. The names felt foreign, disconnected, belonging to a story he had never lived. Then he saw it. Parent/child match, 49.5%. Daniel Reed. Jordan read the line once. Twice. Then again. His breath stuttered. His mother's name was nowhere. Not in close family. Not in distant relatives. Not even in remote genetic clusters. But Daniel. Daniel was the anchor. The match. The truth. Jordan clicked the profile. A small circular photo popped up. A man in his late 40s, smiling awkwardly at the camera, like he wasn't used to taking pictures. He had the same strong chin Jordan saw in the mirror every morning. The same deep-set eyes. The same slight furrow in the brow when thinking. Jordan's stomach sank. This man looked like him. He scrolled down. Current residence, 30 miles away. Occupation, high school coach. Hobbies, volunteering at a local youth center. And a last detail. Family tree note. Have a son I've never met. Jordan's entire body froze. That wasn't a clue. That was a confession. His hand shook violently as he clicked the message icon. He typed something short because anything longer felt impossible. Are you Daniel Reed? My DNA test matched with you. His finger hovered over the send button. His chest tightened. He pressed it anyway. Minutes passed. His screen stayed empty. 5 minutes. 9. 14. He told himself, maybe Daniel wouldn't reply. Maybe it was a wrong match. Maybe this was all a mistake. Maybe BZZT. A message flashed across his screen. Jordan's breath caught as he read the 5 words that changed everything. I've been waiting for this. His heart slammed against his ribs. Waiting? Why waiting? For who? Jordan stared at the sentence, feeling heat rise behind his eyes. That wasn't the message of a stranger. That wasn't the response of someone confused or caught off guard. That was the voice of a man who had been locked out of a story he desperately tried to enter. Jordan typed back, hands trembling at the truth that seemed to be unfolding by itself. Who are you to me? The reply came fast, almost too fast. I believe I'm your father. Jordan felt the ground shift beneath him. Memories of birthdays, Father Sundays at school, sports events. Every moment he spent looking at other kids' fathers and wondering why his never showed, rushed back like a wave crashing over him. If Daniel was right, then his mother hadn't just hidden a name. She had rewritten Jordan's entire origin story. He messaged again. Why didn't you ever come find me? After a pause, a long one this time, Daniel responded. Your mother wouldn't let me. Someone blocked every attempt I made. Someone made sure I disappeared from your life. Jordan's breath hitched. The room felt too small, too loud, too silent. It was everything at once. The truth didn't just hurt, it rewired something inside him. Daniel sent one final message. If you want to talk, I'm here. I always have been. Jordan closed the app slowly. He wasn't just holding a phone. He was holding the beginning of an identity crisis. A reunion story. A family secret unraveling in real time. He looked at the DNA report one more time, and through the shock, grief, and disbelief, a new question surfaced, quiet but powerful. What truth comes out when science refuses to keep your secrets? Jordan didn't plan to meet Daniel so soon. He told himself he needed time. Time to breathe, time to think, time to understand how 30 years of his life could unravel with a single DNA match. But the truth was louder than his fear. And curiosity, once awakened, doesn't go back to sleep. 3 days after that message, Jordan found himself pulling into the parking lot of a quiet community park. A place, Daniel suggested. A place, he said, where conversations don't feel like confrontations. Jordan sat in his car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles whitened. His heart pounded a rhythm he couldn't slow down. He wasn't just meeting a stranger. He was meeting the man whose absence shaped his entire childhood. Or rather, the man who wasn't supposed to be a stranger at all. Through the windshield, Jordan saw Daniel sitting on a bench, shoulders slightly hunched, hands clasped, eyes scanning every passing face until they finally landed on Jordan's car. And when they did, something in Daniel's expression cracked open. Shock, sadness, recognition, longing, all in one. Jordan stepped out. The air felt thick, heavy, alive. Daniel stood slowly, as if afraid to move too quickly and shatter the moment. "Jordan," he asked softly, his voice breaking on the single word. Jordan nodded. It was the first time they'd ever spoken, yet somehow it felt like the thousandth. They stood there in silence, feet apart, hearts exposed, neither one knowing how to bridge the gap, until Daniel finally said, "You look just like your mother." Jordan's stomach twisted. It wasn't the comparison that hurt. It was the implication behind it. That Daniel knew his mother, that he remembered her, that the story Jordan grew up with about a nameless man who abandoned them was already starting to crumble. They sat down on the bench. The wind carried faint sounds of children playing somewhere behind them, voices echoing through the park. It was normal, ordinary, but nothing about this moment felt ordinary. Jordan finally asked, "What happened between you and my mom?" Daniel let out a slow breath, like he'd been preparing for this question for decades. "We were young," he said. "Too young, maybe, but we were in love. We talked about building a life together. Then our families got involved." Jordan frowned. "What do you mean?" Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "Her brother, Ray, thought I wasn't good enough, said I wasn't stable, said she needed someone with more money, more ambition, someone safer." Jordan blinked. "Uncle Ray." Daniel nodded. "He hated me. Still don't know why. Maybe he thought he was protecting her. Maybe he didn't like where I came from. But he made everything impossible." Jordan swallowed, the puzzle pieces starting to click into place. Daniel continued. "Your mom and I had a fight the night she told her family she was pregnant. It wasn't even a big fight, just fear mixed with bad timing. But the next day, she was gone. Moved 2 hours away without a word." Jordan's heart twisted. "Why didn't you come after her?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "I did. I drove to her new address. Knocked on the door. Her brother answered. Told me to stay away. Said she didn't want to see me. But the baby wasn't mine." Jordan felt something cold bloom in his chest. "And you believed him?" Daniel shook his head hard. "No. That's why I filed a petition. I wanted a paternity test. I wanted to know the truth." Jordan's mind raced. A petition? His mother never mentioned that. Not once. Daniel reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Yellowed paperwork. Court documents. He handed one sheet to Jordan. At the top, petition for establishment of paternity. Filed by Daniel Reed. Case number 2279B. Status withdrawn. Jordan frowned. "Why did you withdraw it?" Daniel looked him dead in the eye. "I didn't." A chill ran through Jordan. "Then who did?" Daniel flipped to the next page. The withdrawal form. Jordan's eyes widened. The signature on the bottom line didn't match Daniel's handwriting. And the date, April 12th, 1997, was the same day his mother moved again. Jordan's pulse hammered in his ears. Someone forged this. Daniel nodded. Someone who knew both of us. Someone who had access to her mail and my address. Jordan's hands shook as he whispered, "Ray." Daniel didn't say the name, but his silence confirmed it. Jordan stared down at the forged signature, a lifetime of anger rising in his chest. Anger he spent years directing at the wrong man. His mother didn't run because she was abandoned. Daniel didn't disappear because he didn't care. A lie did. A lie that stretched across decades, poisoning everything it touched. Jordan felt tears sting the corners of his eyes. "She told me you didn't want me." Daniel's voice cracked. "So, I tried. I swear to you I tried. They shut every door in my face. They erased me from the paperwork. They told everyone I was violent, dangerous, unstable." Jordan shook his head slowly. "You're a coach. You work with kids. Daniel's eyes filled. And I wanted to work with my kid. You. Jordan inhaled sharply, pain and clarity mixing into something unbearable. Then Daniel said something that shifted the earth beneath them. I kept every letter I wrote you. Hundreds. None were ever answered. Jordan felt the world tilt. Letters. Hundreds. All lost. Or hidden. His throat tightened. Why didn't you stop looking? Daniel's answer was simple and devastating. Because I never stopped being your father. Jordan looked down at the forged papers again, the ink smeared slightly from age, but the lie still bold. And in that moment, he understood something painful and undeniable. Secrets don't just change the past. They rewrite the present. They reach into the future and twist everything you think you know. Who benefits the most when the truth stays buried? Jordan closed the file slowly, and somewhere inside him, a storm was forming. He knew exactly where he needed to take this next. Jordan walked onto Dr. Phil's stage with Daniel's documents still echoing in his mind. The forged signature, the withdrawn petition, the truth Daniel fought for but never reached. And above all, the one name Daniel whispered with the weight of a man who had been robbed of fatherhood. Ray, Jordan's uncle, his mother's older brother, the gatekeeper of a lie that lasted nearly 3 decades. Jordan didn't tell the show about Ray at first. He didn't need to. Dr. Phil's producers had seen the same court documents, the same hospital forms, the same inconsistencies in the timeline. They knew someone else was involved. Someone who wasn't sitting backstage. Someone who came as an audience guest. Now, under the lights, Jordan could feel that person's presence like a shadow pressed against his back. Dr. Phil sat forward, elbows on his knees, his voice steady but heavier than before. Jordan, your DNA results show Daniel Reed is a 49.5% match. That means biologically, he's your father. The audience murmured, soft gasps, whispered reactions. Jordan's mother, sitting on the opposite chair, covered her mouth with shaking hands. Dr. Phil continued, but according to these court documents, Daniel attempted to establish paternity decades ago, and someone withdrew the case without his consent. Jordan's mother squeezed her eyes shut. Ray sat in the audience perfectly still, his face unreadable, hands gripping his knees as if bracing himself. Dr. Phil turned his gaze toward Jordan's mother. Margaret, did you withdraw the petition? She shook her head, tears already spilling. No, I never did. I never even saw that form. The entire studio went silent. Dr. Phil nodded slowly, almost sadly, because he already knew the next step. Then someone around you did. Someone with access. Someone with influence. Jordan's heartbeat slammed at his chest. He stared at Ray. Ray looked away. Dr. Phil held up a page from the court file. The name who signed this withdrawal is someone close to both of you. Someone who's here today. The cameras panned across the audience. One face stayed still, stiff, pale, sweating. Dr. Phil called it out. Ray, would you stand up, please? The sound of Ray rising to his feet felt like a door being torn open. The audience held their breath. Jordan's mother gasped, covering her face. And Jordan felt the world tilt in slow motion. Dr. Phil spoke gently but firmly. Ray, is this your signature on the withdrawal form? Ray hesitated. His jaw clenched. His eyes darted between Margaret, Jordan, and the cameras. Finally, he inhaled sharply. Yes, he said. A wave of shock moved across the studio. Jordan's vision blurred for a second, not from tears, but from disbelief, betrayal, and rage all tangled together. You did that? Ray lifted a trembling hand. I did it for your mother. She was scared. She didn't know what to do. Jordan's voice broke with anger. You stole a father from me. Ray's expression twisted with guilt. Daniel wasn't stable back then. He had no job, no future. He wasn't good enough for you. Daniel stood up in the audience, voice cracking. I was a kid trying to get on my feet. That doesn't make me dangerous. Ray snapped back. You weren't ready to raise a child. And you were. Daniel countered. You weren't his father. You weren't even his guardian. You were just the one with the loudest voice. The audience erupted. Whispers, gasps, emotional shock. Dr. Phil tapped his finger against his chair, signaling for silence. Ray, he said calmly. You took a choice that wasn't yours to take. And you changed the course of Jordan's entire life. Ray's eyes watered. I thought I was protecting them. Jordan shook his head slowly. No, you were protecting a lie. Ray lowered himself back into the audience seat, defeated. For the first time, he looked small, broken, like a man finally forced to face the consequences of a truth he buried for too long. Dr. Phil turned back to Jordan. There's one thing left. It's time to open the official laboratory results. The envelope sat between them like a stone on the table. Jordan stared at it. He could feel the weight of his entire past and future inside it. Dr. Phil slipped his thumb under the seal, carefully pulling out the papers. The studio lights reflected off the glossy sheet as he scanned the numbers. And then, something unusual happened. Dr. Phil froze. Not dramatically, not for effect. He froze mid-sentence. Jordan felt his stomach drop. What is it? Dr. Phil's mouth opened, then closed. He swallowed. His voice softened into something heavy and certain. These results, he began, confirm a 99.98% probability. Jordan's knees nearly buckled. He didn't need the last line. His heart already knew. Daniel Reed was his father. Dr. Phil looked toward the audience. Daniel, would you come to the stage? The cameras swung. The crowd murmured. Jordan's breath caught. And Daniel, hands trembling, eyes shining, slowly rose to his feet. Because the truth was no longer hiding. It was walking toward him. Can a lifetime of distance be undone in a single moment of truth? Daniel walked toward the stage like a man stepping through the wreckage of 28 years he never got to live. Every step shook something loose, not just inside him, but inside Jordan too. The cameras followed silently. The audience did not whisper. Even Dr. Phil stayed still, watching the moment unfold with a kind of reverent tension usually saved for life-changing news. When Daniel finally reached the stage, he stopped just a few feet from Jordan. Neither of them spoke at first. They just stared, two strangers with the same eyes, same jawline, same way of fidgeting with their hands when overwhelmed. The resemblance was so striking that even the audience gasped softly, as if seeing the truth written in DNA wasn't enough. They needed to see it written on their faces too. Jordan tried to speak, but no words formed. His throat tightened, and his breath stuttered. After a moment, Daniel whispered, "Hi, Jordan." It was such a small greeting, ordinary, but the weight behind it made Jordan's vision blur. Dr. Phil gently broke the silence. "Jordan," he said softly, "you asked for the truth, and today you got it. But truth is complicated. It comes with pain, with healing, with choices. No one expects you to know what to do next." Jordan nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I don't know how to feel," he admitted. "I am angry. I am relieved. I'm confused, and I'm grateful. All at once." Daniel swallowed hard. "I understand. And you don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness. Not time. Not a relationship. Nothing. I just needed you to know I didn't walk away from you. I never would have." Jordan looked at him, really looked. He saw the lines on his face that matched the years of searching. The exhaustion in his posture that wasn't physical but emotional. The guilt, but also the fierce love of a man who had been trying to reclaim his son from the shadows. "Did you really try?" Jordan asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "Every day. I sent letters. So many letters. I tried to call until the number changed. I came to your baseball games when you were little and watched from the back fence because I wasn't allowed near you." His voice cracked. "You hit your first home run on a Thursday afternoon. You pointed into the stands. People thought you were pointing at your mom, but you were pointing at me." Jordan's breath caught. "How do you know that?" Daniel's lips trembled. "Because you looked straight at me, and I've replayed that moment in my head every day for 20 years. Jordan's mother, sitting on the opposite chair, broke into sobs. "I didn't know he was coming to your games," she choked out. "Ray kept everything from me. He said Daniel was dangerous. He said he would ruin our lives." Dr. Phil gently intervened. "Margaret, fear makes people vulnerable to manipulation. But fear doesn't erase the consequences." Margaret nodded through tears. "I'm so sorry, Jordan. I was young, scared, alone, and Ray convinced me he was protecting me. I didn't realize he was destroying all three of us. Jordan stared at her. He saw her guilt, her regret, her fear of losing him. It didn't erase the pain, but it made it more human. Then Dr. Phil handed Jordan a small stack of worn envelopes. Daniel gave these to us earlier. Letters he wrote to you over the years. He kept every copy. Jordan took the stack. His hand shook as he opened the first one, a faded envelope dated when he was just 2 years old. Inside was a messy, heartfelt note. Dear Jordan, I don't know if you'll ever see this, but today you said your first word. Your mother's friend told me. I wasn't allowed to be there. I hope someday you'll know I was trying. Jordan pressed the letter against his chest. His shoulders shook. He wasn't crying softly. He was crying the way someone cries when the truth hits a place too deep to put into words. Daniel reached out cautiously. Do you want a hug? Jordan nodded. The audience held its breath as father and son embraced for the first time in 28 years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't smooth. It was shaky and emotional and raw and real. But it was a beginning. And beginnings, real ones, are rare. Dr. Phil let the moment breathe before he finally said, This isn't the end. This is the first honest moment in the story of your family. Forgiveness isn't a single decision. It's a journey, and you've all taken the first step. Jordan pulled away from the hug, wiping tears from his face. He looked at Daniel, at the man who never stopped trying, never stopped hoping, never stopped searching, and whispered the words that rewrote everything. I want to get to know you. Daniel closed his eyes, relief shattering across his face. Jordan wasn't just reclaiming a father. He was reclaiming a piece of himself. And as the studio lights softened, as the cameras began to fade out, one question lingered, soft but powerful. What parts of your own story deserve a second chance? Stories like this remind us that truth can hurt, but it can also heal. If Jordan's journey moved you, share your thoughts below. Your voice might give someone the courage to face their own story. And if you want more real, emotional stories like this, consider subscribing for more.